Hello everyone, I'm Jake Bruecker, and today I'll be presenting on Kendo. So what exactly is Kendo? Kendo is a Japanese martial arts that descended from swordsmanship. They use bamboo swords and they wear protective armor. And then here is a quick clip to give you an idea kind of what that looks like. So it's a little bit kind of what the sport is like. So now some terminology just to help everyone understand a little bit better what the sport is about. So first we have the shinai, which is the bamboo sword that they use. It's actually broken into a couple parts. So you can only strike with a certain part of the sword, and that is called the manuchi. So the manuchi is a certain part about the length. It goes from the tip, where you see that white tip, just below that other white ring around the sword. Next, we have the men, which is their protective headgear. It drapes down over the shoulders and covers their throat, and has a metal face mask. And then the do, which is their breastplate. It covers the lower half of their chest and their abdominal region. Kote, which are their wrist guards. And finally, we have Suki, and Suki is a thrust to the throat. So some general rules about Kendo. Each match is 5 minutes long. And Kendo players, they strike the men, the do, the kote, or perform a Suki. To do that before your other opponent does, to receive an ippon, which is a point. And to receive this ippon, your body must remain in an upright position. You can't be leaning over, such as they do in fencing. And the first person to get to 2 ippons wins, or whoever has the most after 5 minutes. 3 referees will judge the match. As you can see in the video, the referees hold 2 flags, each a different color. And then those colors, they have different flags on each player. So one of the players had a red flag that was on his back, and the other player has a white flag. When a player gets an ippon, they raise the flag for whoever gets the ippon, and that's how it's scored. So we get into a needs analysis. So 3 big things Kendo players need to have are core stability, shoulder, arm, and wrist strength, and lower body power. They need to be able to maintain a good upright posture. That's where the core stability comes in. Striking the sword, a lot of overhead movements. And then with the lower body power, it's a lot of explosive, quick steps forward and backwards when attacking. So our main injury concerns we're going to see plantar fasciitis. We'll see some rotator cuff injuries. Extensor tendinopathy is also common, as well as low back pain. So here's kind of a general overview of the plan. See, there's a couple different phases. We have 2 competition periods. One's a little bit longer than the other. So to break that down a little bit more for you, so I have 1 DPP phase, and then that'll lead into a preseason, and then we have a competition phase. And that competition phase is the shorter one. It's about 3 weeks long, where they have tournaments 3 weekends in a row, so it's pretty intensive. Then we get into a second GPP phase. We have another preseason, and then we have another competition phase. That competition phase is a little bit longer. It's about 9 weeks, but they only have 2 competitions, one at the beginning and then one at the end. And then our final GPP, that's just kind of finishing out the year. So for GPP1, it is 8 weeks long, broken down into 4 blocks that are going to be all 2 weeks long. So first we have the general strength. Goal is just become familiar with different movement patterns and start to just build a base of strength. So we're going to be going 3 days a week, but we're going to be performing sets, 3 to 4 sets, 5 to 8 reps, and all this is going to be RPE based. So we're going to go about 5 to 6 RPE. So it's not super difficult, but we just kind of want to get them used to the different movement patterns. And then we're going to go into our aerobic blocks. So the goal of these 3 aerobic blocks is going to be increase our movement quality, capillary density, muscular endurance, and then our tendon and ligament strength. So for this first 2 weeks here, we're going to do a 1x20. We're going to go 3 days a week. And our intensity is going to be RPE based. And we're going to increase the intensity each day as it goes on. So day 1, the exercise will be done at a 6 to 7 RPE. Day 2 will be done at a 7 to 8. And day 3 will be at an 8 to 9. And for this, they'll be doing about 20 exercises per workout, no more than about 30 seconds rest between each exercise. So then we're going to go into a 1x15 for aerobic block 2. We'll stay with the 3 days a week. The intensities for each day is going to hold the same, but now we're going to lower the amount of exercises we're doing from 20 to 12, and we're going to add in some isometric holds for about 5 to 6 different exercises. We'll be doing 2 sets of 30 seconds for each of those. And now we'll go into the 1x10. So it's still the same, 3 days a week, intensity the same as the last 2 blocks. Big difference here is we're going to be increasing the length of the isometric holds. So we're just doing 1 minute straight for each exercise. So now we're going to get into our preseason. So the first phase that we have in our preseason is our strength phase. It's going to be about 4 weeks long. The goal here is to increase strength and durability. Still be going 3 days per week. We're going to do 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 8 reps, and we're going to do it at about an intensity of 75 to 90% of our 1 rep max. So, and over the course of the 4 weeks here, the volume will decrease and then our intensity will increase. We'll be adding some more plyometric type movements in here as well, just to kind of get them used to what they're going into their power phase. So our power phase is quite short. It's only 2 weeks long. Well, here's we're going to try to increase our force production. Still be going 3 days a week, 4 to 6 sets at about 3 to 5 reps. And we'll decrease the intensity a little bit, going down to 60 to 80% of our 1 rep max. And in this phase, we're looking to try to move the bar fast. So we'll do things like pin squats, trap bar deadlifts from blocks, some Olympic lifts, and some of those derivatives. So now we go into our competition phase. First thing here is it's our maintenance block. So trying to maintain the qualities that we have attained through our previous training. We're trying to keep the athletes fresh. We're not trying to stress them more. We're trying to complement the stress that they've received during practice. So they're going to be practicing 4 days a week in their in-season, and we're going to train 4 days a week. So we're going to do 30-minute sessions before each practice. And so the session is going to be broken up into 3 different parts. So we're going to have our warm-up, which is going to consist of 4 to 5 exercises performed in a circuit-like fashion. We'll do 3 to 5 reps of each. We'll do certain things. We'll do a lot of basic movement patterns like squatting, lunging, crawling, maybe some jumps, just kind of get them prepared. We'll go through that about 2 to 3 times. And then we'll go into a complex. So we can either do this with a barbell, a kettlebell, or a dumbbell. It's pretty diverse here. An example of that would be doing like a barbell RDL, do 3 reps of that. Then we go into 5 reps or so of a bent over row. And then we go into 5 reps of a front squat, and then 3 reps of an overhead press, something like that. And finally, we'll have our bigger lift, which will be something like squat, maybe it's a quarter squat, half squat, pin squat, a deadlift, trap bar deadlift, hang cleans, hang pulls, and it'll be decently high intensity. It'll be going 70 to 80% of a 1 rep max, but it'll be low sets, low reps, 2 to 3 sets, 3 to 5 reps. So now we have our DPP phase 2 here. So getting back into it, we'll do 2 weeks of a 1x20 again. We're trying to ease the athletes back into higher volumes. They just had 3 really intense weeks of an in-season, a lot of competition in there. So we want to try to ease them back into doing more volume. We're going 3 days a week. The intensity is going to be RPE based like it was in the aerobic block. And we want to try to prevent soreness as much as possible. We just kind of want to get them acclimated to doing more work again. So now we're going to go into a hypertrophy phase. That'll be about 5 weeks. The goal here will be increased muscular size and strength. So we're going to go 4 days a week. It's going to be an upper lower split. And it'll be a little bit different structure than your typical hypertrophy, your normal like 4x10. So we'll do like a 5 to 10 minute warm up. That can include maybe some different Kendo skills if they want to get some extra work in. Otherwise, it's going to be just some basic dynamic warm up. Then we'll get into some CNS stuff. We'll do some med ball throws, maybe do some jumps, do some resisted sprints. And then we'll have a bigger lift. So this will be things like squats, deadlifts, bench press, military press. And we'll do that 8x5. And we're going to aim for about 1 minute rest between sets. And then we'll go into a superset. So you can trying to hit the arms here, focus on shoulders, triceps, biceps. Pick 2 exercises. We'll go 3x10 to 12 reps. Rest will be a little bit longer here. We'll go about 2 to 3 minutes. And then we get into some pump work. We just take 1, maybe 2 exercises, something like a push-up or a dumbbell curl, lightweight, maybe body weight. We'll go 3 sets, 20 to 30 reps. So then we kind of go into our strength phase again. It'll be similar to the strength phase we had before. 3 weeks, trying to continue to increase that strength. 3 days a week, 4 to 6 sets of 4 to 8 reps. Intensity is going to be slightly higher than that strength phase earlier. We're going to go at about intensity about 80 to 95% of a 1 rep max. So then we have our preseason, our second one. We'll go into power again. It'll be very similar, except for it's just going to be a little bit longer. So we're still trying to work on increasing that force production. 3 days a week, 4 to 6 sets, 3 to 5 reps, 60 to 80% of 1 rep max. So then our second bout of competition here. This bout of competition, like I said, is a little bit more stretched out, but we're going to keep the same maintenance phase that we had before. We really want to try to keep these athletes fresh. I didn't feel like adding an extra day or adding some more volume would be very necessary, considering they're still training 4 days a week for about an hour to maybe 2 hours. So it's going to be the same setup as we had before. So then finally, GPP3, all of our competition is done. We're kind of just wrapping up the calendar year here. We're going to focus on some aerobic capacity again. Goal here is just to build up a good aerobic base, try to get the athletes to move in a plethora of different ways. Some ways we're going to do that are contralateral circuits and some interval training. Each of these sections is going to last about 3 to 4 weeks. And then it'll be into the next year, and they'll work into that. And then finally, so we have 4 deload weeks spread out across the calendar. And the goal here is just to recover from these different cycles. Many deload weeks are usually, it's about 4 to 8 weeks out. after a certain training. I spread it out a little bit more in some sections. So we have 4 deload weeks, and during these deload weeks, we're going to do about 2 to 3 sets, 3 to 5 reps, 60 to 70% of our 1 rep max, and we'll go about 2 to 3 days per week. That wraps things up. Any questions?
There you go. Now that I'm unmuted, I have one. I'm curious, in your maintenance phases, you had your big lifts after your complex. I know that a lot of people just like to put the big lifts right away in the workout, and I'm just curious as to why you want to do that, what your rationale was.
So behind that, it was, we have the session right before their practice. And they're going to be doing, the bigger lifts are going to be heavier intensity, so trying to potentiate them right before they get into their training.
Awesome.
Jake, when you were like researching Kendo, you know, the first couple of weeks when you're like, what is this sport? And you kind of figured out exactly what it was. Were there any other kind of combative implement-based sports that you drew inspiration from or looked to see if there was more developed training protocols and philosophies around training these kind of types of sport that you drew from?
Yeah, I looked a little bit at fencing. That was kind of the main one that really stood out that was somewhat similar. However, there was definitely some bigger differences in that, whereas like fencing, it's a lot of like lunging forward, being able to kind of like bend over. It's, quick, very straightforward and back, whereas in Kendo, it's a lot of overhead, they're striking overhead. It's quick movement of the elbows and the wrists. So those were kind of the key differences, but like I was looking at some stuff for fencing, and it's kind of where I got some of like the ideas for doing stuff for shoulders and stuff like that. But the biggest difference is, with fencing, you hold it with one. Kendo, you're holding the bamboo stick with 2 hands. So there were some big differences, but fencing was definitely the one that was the closest that I could find.
Jake, I had a question. Earlier on, you mentioned having a focus on isometric holds.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, what might some of those look like? Would you make them maybe more specific to the positions of the sport? Say, for example, like holding an extended moment arm with a resistance going a certain way to hold a position like for holding the bamboo stick. Anything like that?
Not necessarily, just because I have it kind of early in my off season. I just kind of want to do it for some general strength, particularly of the tendons. So you're doing things like some squats, maybe some iso lunges, push up, maybe a back extension, pull up, just kind of different movements, stuff like that.
I'm curious about your GPP phase. Why did you choose to go with a 1x20 and a 1x15 as opposed to a more traditional 5 sets of 10 or something of that nature?
So a lot of these Kendo athletes are very unfamiliar with the weight room. It's kind of strength training in Kendo it's just kind of starting up. It's particularly starting up in universities and high schools. So a lot of these guys, they might have trained in the sport, but they haven't done much actual like strength training. So I figured it'd be a good way to get them to do a lot of different movements, get them to, a lot exposure to a lot of just different things, as compared to, like you said, something, more traditional, but like we're going to cut the exercises in half. The amount. So, we're doing 20 exercises, they're going to be exposed to a lot more different movements than they would compared to 10 or 8.
Awesome.